Fauci found in contempt, Iran has a new peace deal, and 2 biological men have declared for the WNBA. All that and more right now. Welcome to episode 79 of the Republic Brothers podcast. He's Matt, I'm Mike, and today is August 10th. Well, we mentioned it before, and we have some new updates on Dr. Fauci's testimony in front of Congress, or lack thereof, I should say. On August 6, 2026, the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, chaired by Senator Rand Paul, voted 8-5 along party lines to hold former NIAID Director Dr. Anthony Fauci in contempt of Congress. 1 week prior, Fauci appeared under subpoena before the committee regarding COVID-19 origins, NIH research funding in Wuhan, and pandemic response policies. During that hearing, Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination over 100 times, refusing to answer any questions, including what day it was, what color his tie was, or what color the carpet was. Chairman Rand Paul brought the resolution charging Fauci with failure to comply with a congressional subpoena, which carries a potential federal misdemeanor charge punishable by up to 12 months in prison. The core legal class centers on whether Fauci can legally claim Fifth Amendment protections. Paul argues that because President Joe Biden issued Fauci a pardon, Fauci faces no actual legal jeopardy from federal prosecution, making his silence an unlawful refusal to testify. Quote, Dr. Fauci faced no risk of federal prosecution. All he had to do was tell the truth. Instead of waiting for a full Senate floor vote, Senator Paul is sending the contempt finding directly as a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. A congressional referral does not obligate the Justice Department to prosecute, leaving the decision on whether to investigate or charge Fauci entirely in the hands of federal prosecutors. Fauci's lawyer, David Schlertler, called the vote a crude political stunt and accused Rand Paul of abusing committee power to carry out a personal vendetta and weaponize the DOJ. Ranking member Gary Peters and committee Democrats voted against the resolution, arguing that penalizing a witness for asserting constitutional rights undermines Congress's ability to conduct future oversight. Now, can we just take a second to imagine if the shoe was on the other foot here? If that was Trump sitting in that chair and he had been given a pardon and continuously pled the Fifth, would Democrats still be arguing that that's his constitutional right? I don't think so.
They would absolutely lose their minds at that. The far left just can't see their own double standards. All the American people wanted was the truth. Fauci got a full preemptive pardon and faced no consequences for his actions, yet he still didn't want to tell the truth. That tells you he knew what he was doing was wrong, but as we found out through Fauci's diary, he cared more about being famous than he did saving lives. That's just not a great quality to have when you are a doctor. We would say the same thing if it were Trump or Vance or someone in the current administration. We should hold everyone accountable to the same standard, but that's just not where we are at.
Yeah, we just wanted the truth. He can't be prosecuted for it, even though he definitely should be. But him pleading the Fifth really makes you wonder what else he doesn't want them to find. Fauci's claiming it's a witch hunt. Okay, well then why couldn't you answer questions about the color of the carpet?
The reason that I asked Dr. Fauci what color his tie was and what day of the week it was and what color the carpet is. What color is the carpet in front of you? He looked, by the way. I thought he was going to answer that one. He looked very carefully at the carpet. The reason I asked those questions was precisely to test the good faith nature of his invocation of the Fifth Amendment. I think it's pretty clear, given Dr. Fauci's 111 invocations of the Fifth Amendment, including questions that he could have no fear of prosecution on. He's not going to get prosecuted for the color of his tie.
I respectfully decline to answer.
Shows that he had no interest and no intention of answering any of our questions, and that is an abuse of the there's no privilege for any of that.
Senator Hawley said it perfectly. He had a premeditated plan to show up and not answer a single question.
That's clearly what his lawyers told him to do, as Fauci himself said on the advice of counsel.
Yeah. Do you think the DOJ will actually act on the referral, or do you think they're going to decline to press charges?
I would be shocked if the DOJ actually brought charges against Fauci. If they did, it would be followed by all kinds of legal challenges and appeals. Even if you got a conviction, the appeals process would drag on for years, and there is a good chance any conviction would just be thrown out. There is some gray area here, but I don't even think it's worth spending the time and resources on this. It's probably better if we just move on and find out all the information without Fauci and share that with the American people. You don't need to be a doctor to look back and realize some of our policies on COVID were a complete disaster. Keeping kids out of school for so long, despite kids being at a very low risk of any serious complications from COVID, ended up causing more damage than it prevented.
Yeah, I agree. I don't foresee any charges actually coming. And even if that did, I think they'd end up being thrown out anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Now, let's move on to Iran, because Iran has released a new peace plan, which they say would end the conflict. The regime says these are things that would end the war, prevent another war in the future, preserve their nuclear rights, and secure the Strait of Hormuz. Let's go through the main points of the plan, which there are 6 of them, and we will discover just how crazy the IRGC is. Point number 1. End all threats. Iran wants the U.S. to stop all threats against Iran, as well as perceived insults to its national and religious values. What? The president does like to insult people, but no chance there will ever be an agreement in human history where we agree not to say certain things. This is a pipe dream of the regime. They don't want us to say they are the #1 sponsor of terrorism, despite the fact it's true.
Yeah, I'm guessing that Iran doesn't realize that we have freedom of speech in America, and we're certainly not going to let them dictate what we can and can't say.
They want to take that away, though, as does a lot of the left. Point number 2. Halt all military action. Permanently stop all military attacks against Iran and its regional allies in Lebanon, Palestine, Yemen, and Iraq. This point is Iran trying to protect its proxy groups. This would allow them to build a bigger terror network and terrorize more of the region. Point number 3. Withdraw forces. Remove the U.S. naval blockade and withdraw U.S. air and naval forces deployed in the region. Withdrawing forces would take all of our options away, so not going to happen. Can you imagine the backlash if Trump decided all the air bases we built in Saudi Arabia or Iraq were just thrown out? We just did what Joe Biden did in Afghanistan and blow up all our equipment and leave?
Yeah, and that would be something that I think I can confidently say you would agree with me that we would rip him for.
Absolutely. Point number 4 is paying compensation. Provide full financial compensation for damages caused during previous conflicts.
Now, has there been a time in history of war where one country paid for the damage they caused to another country?
Yes, but that often only happens after a side surrenders. The easy example here is Germany. They paid war reparations after both world wars. They lost both of them, though. There have been wars in the Middle East as well that saw someone having to pay, but it's certainly not the norm. If you lose, that's when you probably would have to pay. At this point, I don't think you can sit here and honestly say we've lost in Iran. We haven't won, but it's certainly not a loss. Point number 5, lifting sanctions. Remove all unilateral economic and trade sanctions against the Iranian people. They need to save the economy, and they can't do it with sanctions. If Trump removed sanctions, he should be impeached. I'll go that far. Point number 6 is releasing assets. Unconditionally release and unfreeze all withheld Iranian financial assets Iran has abroad. The reason we froze those assets was because they were using them to do terrorism. All of this money would go straight to the regime to rebuild its military and its proxy networks. They don't care about the people in Iran. It's all about their power. This clearly shows Iran is not serious about getting to a deal. Trump has repeatedly said he would obliterate Iran, then backed off. It has happened so many times, Iran doesn't believe it anymore. They are waiting for the midterm elections with the hopes that a new House and Senate come in and are kinder to them. That's what they are waiting for. I put this question to you, Mike. if the House and Senate are controlled by Democrats, is that a friendlier regime in Washington to them?
Absolutely. I don't think there's really any question about it. I don't even think Democrats would dispute that. What do you think our options are at this point? How do we end this?
We have a couple options. None of them are great at this point. The question is, how far are we willing to go? If Donald Trump wanted to, he could brush his hands of this, say, we're done, we're moving on, pull the naval force out. You still have the air base. It doesn't open the Strait of Hormuz, but you can walk away. He will get ripped for it, rightly so, because he started this saying it was about Iran not getting a nuclear weapon. Option 2, you keep the naval blockade on, and you just try to wait them out. Not a great option, but it would probably work. You would just starve them financially and hope the people in Iran overthrow their own government. Will that happen, and how long will it take? We don't know. Option 3 is kind of our nuclear option. We wouldn't use nukes. We would use conventional military, but you keep the blockade on, you strain them financially, and you blow up all of their infrastructure. That would be power plants, that would be oil fields. Anything they use to create electricity, you blow it up. There's something like 93 million people in Iran, and you would be creating a massive humanitarian crisis. But if the objective is to keep them from getting a nuclear weapon, you blow up all their infrastructure and tell them if they want a nuke, they can build it in the dark.
Yeah, I certainly don't like the second option there. I think that's probably actually the worst of the three options. I would not be happy about the first option either, to be honest. Just completely pulling out and leaving would be insane at this point. I've been saying for weeks, option number 3, I think, is the way to go.
It's certainly the one that will get us in the most trouble with the International Criminal Court and international law. Not that we give a crap about that. Options 1 and 2, his own party is not going to be happy with. Option 3, his own party would be happy with, but the left would hate him. I would imagine they'll tell him he doesn't care about humans, something along those lines, to rip him. But if he wants an unconditional win, that's how he would do it at this point.
Now, which option helps Republicans the most in the midterms?
Well, it would have been nice to do option 3 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, so people had time to forget.
Exactly.
And prices could go down.
So you could win before the election. We could start that now, but it would take a couple months. The humanitarian crisis would come after the election at this point, given we're only a couple months from it. But the conflict will still be going on when the elections get here, if we win option 3. If you go option 1 or 2, you likely don't solve the problems. You will still have Iran using the Strait of Hormuz and that choke point to hurt everyone else. Asia and Europe need that oil, and they will get punished for what we did if we just walk away.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to our last topic here. Former NBA players Enes Kanter and Royce White both publicly declared their intentions to enter the 2027 WNBA draft last week. Enes Kanter, the former 6'10" NBA center, released a video wearing a WNBA hoodie, stating he reviewed the league's rules on self-identification and inclusion. He argued that if a self-declaration is the standard for identity, he meets the criteria to compete as a WNBA prospect. Shortly after, former 2012 NBA first-round pick and political candidate Royce White announced that he would also declare for the 2027 WNBA draft, stating he identifies as transgender for the purpose of professional basketball to challenge the league's policies. The current WNBA collective bargaining agreement states that only players who are women are eligible to play in the WNBA, but it does not establish specific medical testing criteria or detailed framework language regarding transgender eligibility, leading both players to challenge how the league defines and enforces eligibility. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert issued an internal memo to team presidents and general managers addressing the media attention around transgender participation and stating that league executives will hold formal meetings to review policy approaches. The WNBA Players Association released a public statement emphasizing values of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion while stating the union and its players will not be used as political pawns, as if they weren't already political pawns. This all sparked from an ESPN interview with Sophie Cunningham. During the interview, Cunningham stated that keeping transgender women out of women's athletics was common sense to protect biological females and fairness in competition. She stood by her comments in subsequent press conferences, sparking heavy national debate. Cunningham's comments led to fan demonstrations and courtside signage at road games in Seattle and Portland. A courtside altercation involving Seattle Storm co-owner Celeste Keaton and fans carrying pro-women's sports banners resulted in Keaton receiving a 5-game suspension. Former U.S. women's national team star Megan Rapinoe publicly criticized Cunningham, while Minnesota Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve wore a Trans Kid Belong shirt on the sidelines to oppose Cunningham's rhetoric. Conversely, conservative figures and women's sports advocates like Riley Gaines have been praising Cunningham. Now, I cannot begin to explain how incredibly stupid it is that we even have to discuss this. The WNBA could easily just say, no men allowed. Just define the word woman. But they can't do it. That would look bad to the minority they're pandering to. Now, I saw this poll that said no men in women's sports was considered common sense to roughly 80% of the population. 80%. Why is it that the WNBA and all these other women's leagues are not able to protect their sports? The basis of the WNBA is built on it being only women. It's called the Women's National Basketball Association. The word woman is in the name. This reminds me of that clip from Ben Shapiro where that girl asked him where it says that girls can't join the Boy Scouts. And he says, it's in the name Boy Scouts. I really wish we could just create one league for all the sports for just a couple of years. Maybe after a few years of women not getting to compete professionally, they'll finally realize that they had it great. At the very least, the NBA should stop subsidizing the WNBA. Stop paying their bills until they understand that 80% of the population says is common sense to keep men out of women's sports.
At this point, have we not had enough examples of men playing women's sports? The greatest women's soccer team in the world lost 7-0 to the FC Dallas 15U team. We just aren't the same. Go look up what Fallon Fox did to women. Clay Travis still has his now $10 million offer for a WNBA team to play a high school boys state championship team. $10 million. And they won't do it. Probably because they know they would lose. You would think if you're going to pander, you would do it to the 80% side, not the 20% side that think trans women should be in women's sports. You mentioned the NBA stopping the subsidies to the WNBA. I just can't see them doing it. It's a bad look for the far left, and you know all the liberals in the WNBA would lose their minds, or what's left of their minds, if their entitlement package that is free money was taken away. This is a league that has never made money. And in a dream scenario last year, where Caitlin Clark came in and drove attendance and viewership numbers through the roof, the league still lost $40 million. There would be no WNBA if the men's side didn't pay for it, but it's all about looking good politically. That's why they do it.
Yeah, $40 million loss, and they're still operating and wonder why they're having issues. This is one of those issues. It's like Dave Chappelle said, if you were good enough to play with the men, there would be no WNBA. You would just play in the NBA with the men.
They know it wouldn't go well. Let's take the New York Marathon, for example. They pay the top 30 men and the top 30 women. If you combined it and just said, we're going to pay the top 60 people, not a single woman would get paid. That's the difference between men and women.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. We're just built different. That's all it is.
Yeah, men are not better than women. We have advantages when it comes to physical activities. But women have other advantages. They are more flexible.
Yeah, it's like that. There's another comedy guy I'm thinking of. I can't remember his name. Where he says men and women are different. He said, you want to know my favorite thing about a woman? It's that she's not a dude. So then he goes on to say, how many of you, when you came out to this show tonight, hired a dude to be a babysitter? And he's like, no, none of you. Now, I want to say this clearly, so maybe someone will finally get it and understand. I and we don't care if you're trans. We don't care if you're gay, straight, orange, white, green, blue, black, red, or orange. Doesn't matter. No one else cares either. Whatever you choose to do in your bedroom is your business. We just want you to leave the kids out of it and stop expecting to be treated differently because of your sexual orientation. You want equality? You already have it. Just leave us alone and use some common sense. That being said, you have to realize that people still have the right to their own opinions. Not everyone has to agree with everything you believe in. They're allowed to think that you're weird. Not everyone's into the same things. Some people like Star Wars, some people don't. Some people like sports, some people don't. Some people like some sports and not others. Some people like comic books and some people don't. And no matter what you do in life, someone out there is gonna think it's weird. My point is, there's always a group of people who like something and a group of people who don't. Stop trying to make people like comic books and just go hang out with people who already like comic books. If you try to force it down someone's throat, you're not helping your case. You're just pushing them away. We shouldn't have to have two biological males threatening to join the WNBA just to prove a point.
Yeah, completely agree. You can identify as a cat if you want, but don't try to force your beliefs on me. You can say men can become women, but you should know the majority think you're stupid. But that gets back to a little bit of a problem in that dumb people often don't realize they're dumb. We have been through this before many times. Men have massive advantages when it comes to physical activities. We are bigger, stronger, and faster because of larger skeletons and higher bone density, as well as larger muscles. If you don't believe me, I'll give you the averages. The average adult woman in the United States is 5'3". The average adult man in the US is 5'9". We are different, but we are equal. I kind of think of this a bit like Trump does. If the lunatics get their way, I'll bet on it and coach it. It reminds me of that Lady Ballers movie where an old high school basketball coach recruits all his old players to play women's sports. Call it a hunch, but I think the team with the size 17 shoes is going to win.
Yeah, we don't want Juana Man out there on the court with these women, and they really don't want it either.
Here's a clip of Trump saying exactly how we think. He'll go recruit LeBron.
I'd be the greatest women's basketball coach in history. Because I don't like LeBron James. I like Michael Jordan much better. But I'd go up to LeBron James. It doesn't matter. I'd say, LeBron, did you ever have any desire to be a woman? Because what I'd love you to do is star on my team that I'm building up. I will have the greatest team in history. They'll never lose. Nobody will come within 70 points of this team.
Yeah, I think Trump has a great idea. We should just get a whole bunch of trans-identifying men and just have the best team there is. Now, I want to piggyback on something you said earlier, too, about the average height of a man and a woman. I want to throw this in there. The average weight of a woman who is 20% body fat is between 120 and 135 pounds. The average weight of a man, also at 20% body fat, is between 160 and 180.
That's the average at a near ideal body fat percentage. If you actually look up the percentages of who's above that, it's pretty high. The average man and woman is overweight.
Yeah, that's why I was looking specifically, too, at that 20% body fat, because you don't want to count all the people that are massively overweight in that. I was looking for people that you would consider healthy. All right, well, it is time for our blind ranking segment. Matt, you got me good on the last one, so I am returning the favor today. Today, you are blind ranking our constitutional amendments. Are you ready?
Let's do it. Let's see which weird ones you brought out.
Okay, up first, you have the Third Amendment. That would be the No Quartering Act, which restricts the government from forcing citizens to house soldiers in peacetime.
That's important, but I don't think it's going to be all that high up. There are some better ones, so I'm going to go 4.
Okay, go on number 4. Next up, you have the Seventh Amendment. That is the civil trial rights, preserves the right to a jury trial in federal civil lawsuits.
That is more important to me. It ensures that a jury of your peers can hear the case. I'm going to put that at 2.
Number 2, okay. Next up, you have the 10th Amendment. That is states' rights, reserves powers not granted to the federal government to the states or the people.
That's a tough one. I think I just have to ballpark it at 3. Putting myself in a bad spot here with 1 and 5.
Isn't this exactly what I did? I had 1 and 5 left at the end.
I think so, yeah.
All right. Next up is the 22nd Amendment. That restricts presidents to a maximum of 2 terms. You have 1 and 5 left.
I'm just thinking, is it better than any of the 3 I already ranked? Or is it more important than any of the 3 I already ranked? I'm leaning no. So it's going to go 5, and I'm going to hope you don't throw like the 18th Amendment at me.
Okay. Last up, in your number 1 spot, you have the 5th Amendment. Due process and criminal rights protects against self-incrimination, double jeopardy, and uncompensated property takings, and guarantees due process. Dr. Anthony Fauci knows a lot about the 5th Amendment.
That is a better number 1 than just term limiting a president. It does have its uses, and the average person is wise to know it. When you're dealing with police after they've given you your Miranda rights, probably wise not to incriminate yourself.
Yeah, so all in all, I think you did pretty well with it. You finished with the 22nd Amendment at number 5. That's the 2 terms for presidents. At number 4, you had the 3rd Amendment, the No Quartering Act. At number 3, you had the 10th Amendment. That's the states' rights. At number 2, you had the 7th Amendment, civil trial rights. And at number 1, you had the 5th Amendment, due process and criminal rights.
When you said I got you good the last one, I thought you were going to hit me with like the 18th Amendment, which was like prohibition, which was repealed with the 21st Amendment, by the way.
Yeah, no, I was trying not to repeat any from the last one. And I wanted, just to have some all fresh, brand new ones on there. Yeah. But just for you to see how difficult it is to really pick and choose where to put them.
I feel like I did all right there. That didn't feel too pressure-packed from my side.
So, no, that was good, though. But, all right, that is it for episode 79 of the Republic Brothers Podcast. Before you click away, please hit the subscribe or follow button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.